Hello, hello. We are live. How are you guys doing today? I am so excited to be here. Phantascene and I have been planning this for a while, and yes. Oh, and I need to probably turn off the music now, so I will do that. So, yes. First things first, I'm going to read the little bit about our panel, and then I'm going to have Phantascene introduce herself, and then I'll introduce myself, and we'll go from there, okay? So what we're going to cover today, our summary is having troubles figuring out what to put in your book and author press kit pages, knowing the information that belongs on each type of page and how to keep it easy to read will help people want to help publicize your book and find the information quickly. So on the summary, it said I was going to make one. If we have time, we will do that. And Phantascene is going to be my volunteer for this.
That would be the same Phantascene that did no prep for being the volunteer. So.
That's okay. We'll figure it out. We can bluff. They won't know. But anyway, and if we have time to do that, we'll do it in Notion, which is awesome for prototyping. And then you can kind of see what's good for a general author page and what's good for having like an online book tour and all the information that they'll need. So yeah, I am really excited because this is kind of a tough topic. Phantascene and I were going through and looking for some of our favorite author pages that were really, really good. And so many authors out there have terrible pages and press kits, if they have one at all. So we want to help you guys get a leg up. So let's do this. Just a real quick, go ahead, Phantascene. And if you want to introduce yourself, and I'll provide some links here.
I would like to say we do see your question there on what are press media kits, and we will be answering that. Well met, I am Phantascene, but my real name is Sandra Fikes. Most places I'm known as Phantascene. And I write epic, grimdark fantasy novels with steampunk aesthetics that are like adventure thriller type novels. I am working on editing my first one that I'm hoping to publish next year, maybe. So this is something that I really need to figure out myself. I'm really rusty on press kits and things like that. So, this is a good thing for me to be knowing too. So you should never quit learning. So
Exactly.
Yeah. And I don't know what else to say other than there's my information in the thing if anybody wants to know more about me.
Okay. I am Amy Winters Foss, also known as Shy Red Fox. I'll post my information here because I can't type and talk at the same time. I am a published author. I published my first book, self-published it in April of 2021, and it was a huge learning experience for me. My first press kit page was awful. So this is part of the reason why I wanted to start learning about it and make it easier for people to find the information that they would need. And like I said, help people do better for press kits. So, oh, and we have a follow. Thank you so much, Outrageous Olive. We did have a really super quick question. Phantascene, did you want to take the what are press and media kits, or do you want me to answer that?
How about if I do a little bit on it and then you can correct me?
We'll just share our opinions.
Basically, a press kit, media kit is something that you put together to let people know what your book is and who you are. It serves as an introduction for you and your work that you send out to, like, you can send it to magazines and newspapers, reviewers, put a press kit in with a copy of your book that you send to a reviewer to review your book so that, they can see this is who wrote the book, this is what the book's about, this is what other books this person has wrote. And it saves a reporter having to call you up on the phone and interview you if they want to write about you. So, Yeah, basically, it's a kit for the press that you compiled. Anything you'd like to add to that?
I will add to that. A lot of people's
Yes.
press kits are digital now, and so that's where my thoughts will be focused. But I do have a little bit about what you can do to create like a PDF of all your information for people. So and like make a gallery of images for people to download for like helping you advertise and things like that. So that's all I had to add. It was very well said.
My understanding of press kits goes back to when I was getting into writing up to about 15, 20 years ago. Yeah, well, about 20 years ago when I was working for a magazine. So my knowledge of press kits is a little bit outdated from today's technology. So.
Both are relevant though today. So I don't think it's outdated. It's just there's an additional layer. So author Brian Liu said, I don't know anything about press kits, so here I am. Well, welcome. We'll do our best.
we will try not to lead you astray.
Yeah. Well, we did some research and things. So I am going to talk a little bit really, really fast about platforms. Later on in the stream, I will be sharing some like press kit templates where you guys can fill them in, just kind of a, put your picture here, here, put your Twitter links here, put your email, what books did you do in there. So it's really easy for you guys to set it up. But that's in Notion, and Notion is a good tool for prototyping, that kind of thing, but it's not good for like Google searches. It should not be your main one. It's just kind of this is kind of how I want it to look, and then you should recreate it on another site like World Anvil or WordPress, right? WordPress, sorry, English, or put it into a PDF, which is nice from Notion because you can create a PDF of your things. There is also things like Linktree where you have like a whole bunch of links, but those are a little bit different. If we have time, we'll talk about that. So I'm going to make sure we aren't missing any questions. Go ahead.
Tillin just asked one, when should you plan to put together a press kit? Something before you are published? When you have been signed?
I would say actually as soon as possible. When you have the basis for your story, write it up. And you can always update your stuff because this is digital. It's beautiful that way. So
the main reason I say do it now, do it as soon as you possibly can. One of the things that goes in your press kit is called the elevator pitch, which is a very short, if you got on an elevator at a convention and a movie producer turned around and said, hey, I heard you wrote a book, what's it about? You have until you get to the convention floor to impress this person. And that's your elevator pitch. And you need all the time in the world to perfect that thing. So start that kind of stuff now.
So I am seeing questions come in. If you can use the channel point redeem, it's a single channel point down there. It has the little fox down there with the yips. That will help us keep track and not lose track of the channel points, because I have only so much screen real estate, and so I'll be zipping through there trying to catch things. So please, if you can do that. Yes, Games GM gave an awesome example. Thank you.
Games beat me to the example.
Outrageous Olive Cuts said, question, kind of have a live link tree if you need one to show. I do have another one, but thank you for the volunteer. If we want to look at another one and we have time, I will definitely ask you. Okay, thank you for the offer. So GM says mod mode activated. We are going to get into the essentials of a press kit here. So just let's talk about that. I am going to pull up. Let's see. We're going to pull up a couple examples of a book press kit, and then we can go talk about author ones. So let me pull up a couple of them that I really like, and then switch over so you guys can kind of see that. Here we go. So Larissa Brown is one of my favorite like historical fantasy fiber arts authors, and she does a lot of knitting patterns too. She has basically two things, but she keeps her page super simple. She tells you right here, knits and novels. We know what she does, and she's separated it out into her knit designs, so you can go check those out, and a nice link. Then she also has her Viking historical fantasy novels, which obviously have textiles in them, and it's what partly drew me to them, but they're very good too. And she just has it really clean, really simple, and she has things that she's working on, a very short bio, and how to get a hold of her and find her. So here's a nice example of that. And again, we will go through some of the things that we think are essential. And every page varies some. So hopefully that, I swear every page is like very, very different. So here's one. Go ahead.
It's a lot on the person. It's also showing the personality of the author and the types of books. That goes a lot towards making each one of them individual. It's like with hers there, one of the things I like about it is, like you said, she has the textiles showing there. It shows me what type of person she is. That is interesting to me.
Okay. Well, here is one that you had provided, Phantascene. So if you want to go ahead and chat about his page, and I'll just kind of scroll down as you go through it. So.
Yes. Philip Quaintrell. I think I'm saying his name right. I just recently found out about this awesome writer. What I liked about his was it's really clean. It gives the basics. So, you know, you can get to know more about him and his books and stuff like that. And it struck me as more of a professional thing that I'm kind of having trouble seeing it on the screen there. But
I'm sorry.
okay. I have notes over here. It gives somebody a good idea of what they're looking at when they're going to his page. And if you go, let me call it up here real quick. Thank you. If you go just to the side there, he's got all of his books on another page. So you can see the books real quick and easy going from his about page over to the books page.
I'll pop over there just a second.
And that was one of the things that impressed me, was the entire thing is so clean and neat, and you can see what you're getting, and you have all your information there about him. So that's why I picked him as one that I thought was a real good one. If you're looking for a clean style, I thought his was a really good clean style.
Okay. You had one more too. It was Scott Lynch. If you want to talk about him real quick, and then I'll talk about one more of mine. So
Scott Lynch, he's I mean, all three of these guys, their books got me through hard times. I love them. He comes across as let's be friends on his page here, and it just gives me the impression of somebody that is sitting down to lunch with you and explaining who they are, what they write and everything like that. So yeah, I liked his for the just nice, comfortable. And if you look down towards the bottom, something that I really liked here was he gives you two different bios. He gives you a 100-word and a 50-word bio already made that you can plug right into wherever you need it. So
I didn't realize this was him. I've read Lies of Locke Lamora.
Yeah, Lies of Locke Lamora, right? That book got me through being evicted from my house. I can never say thank you enough to that man. But yeah, I loved when I saw his press page here. It was just like, yeah, that is beautiful. I like the way that he did that. So he's one of my, if I had to pick three, he's one of them.
He's very, very good. So, Phaedra Rose, thank you very much for the resub. I really appreciate it. So let's double check. We did have another question from the Outrageous Olive. Is it worth having your press kit available for download via your author website at all times or only on request? I've seen both. I leave mine up, although I had taken my press kit page down for a little while because I wanted to rework it. But I leave mine up. It doesn't hurt, and then you can have download links to whatever. Although if you have like your book release images, I would take those out because they're dated. So what do you think?
And, if you have like one of the ones that I had looked at when I was trying to decide, okay, who really stands out to me for what I would like to emulate. One of them had that they're working on this book coming up, and it was kind of like, this was 2018 that they posted this information. I think it was something like that. It was this outdated information. So that type of stuff I would make sure to cycle or take off. Keep it up to date if you're going to leave it up.
Yeah, very, very true. So the Outrageous Olive said, I'm noticing people putting their photos front and center. What if you never plan on doing a face reveal as your logo an acceptable replacement? It can be, although a lot of people for interviews will want some sort of identity for you, and they prefer photos. Does that mean you absolutely have to have one? Yeah, you have to make the choice, I would say. Sandra, what do you think?
I know Patreon says that you get a lot more people donating, or not donating, but a lot more patrons if you have a picture. They've actually studied it over the years and determined that people that include a picture get more patrons than people that have no one associated with what they're looking at, no matter how good the page is. Seeing the person, and it's like, if she scrolls back up here real quick, you can see he looks like someone that you just want to kind of sit at the table with and chat about writing. Having that picture there gives you a visual connection to, this is the dude that wrote that book. And so I would say, unless you have real specific reasons for why, and there are legitimate reasons for not wanting to put your picture there, but if it's just shyness, I would say find some way to have somebody help you get the best picture that you can get. Sit down with one of your friends that you trust and have them go through your pictures with you and say, all right, this is a good picture of you. Because if there's not some underlying reason, I would say, yes, definitely put up a picture if you can.
One of them we'll get to later, I had it in the book section, is Gail Carringer. I'd have to look at the Gail. But she does some really fun ones. She does some in costume and where it's her whole body, and you don't just have to see the focus on the face. And so, or she's like peeking out from an umbrella. So feel free to have some fun with it.
There's a lady on one of my Facebook groups that she is awesome, and she is a professional horse rider and archer, and she does a lot of studies for, can you shoot a bow from the back of a horse and stuff like that. And one of the biggest complaints I see people come out to her with is, we can't see your face, because she's always wearing a hood pulled down so you can't see her face. It's become one of her trademark things, in my opinion, and I absolutely love the pictures that she shares, and I don't have a clue what the woman looks like, because she's always slightly turned away from the camera. She's always sitting on her horse with her head tucked down, looking down the bow. It's just, you can find creative ways to do it, but make sure that there's a connection.
Yeah. The Outrageous Olive had a follow-up, and that there is definitely a reason for this. The Outrageous Olive says, what if you write multiple genres or have a morality clause in your work contract? For example, a teacher writing erotica could lose their job if their picture is shown. Yes, then yes, you definitely have a reason to not show you a
Yeah, that's one
picture.
of the cases where I say don't do it.
Yeah, or use one of the. There are anonymizers out there now. Maybe that. So it can't be ID'd as you. So, but yeah, totally. There are definitely used things. So we have some people using images. So allow. Sorry. My auto mod is kind of sticky. So okay. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to make a list real quick, and then I'll see if I can copy pasta it into the chat for you guys. Or maybe we just need to kind of clean up the link and share it later of our talking notes. But so what I had listed of what I would recommend, and Sandra can say if she wants to add anything to this, but you definitely want to have your book title there. You want to have you as the author, your name, a very short bio. Maybe your author site if you're not already on your author site. Maybe short social media links, but those are usually shown at the bottom. Who's publishing it, whether it's you or another company, the publication date, the ISBN, number of pages, purchase link. Those are all really, really good things to have. Oh, we looked at the author stuff first. I'm sorry. I'll finish going through this list and then we'll talk about the author one. A description of the book, that like a short one, and then a back of the blurb. Optional things can be really, really handy. Some reviews or hype from other people, but keep it short, like 1 or 2. A video trailer can be really nice if you've done a really good one. Social media post examples if you're doing a book launch tour and sharing this page with other people. So like, what to tweet, images you can tweet or put on Instagram or whatever. And then we had talked about a physical download of this. You can provide a link to that. I'm sorry, I had my notes out of order. So for the author pages, Sandra, did you have anything to add to the book pages, and then we'll go back to the author pages?
Just to say, if you have, I know when people are traditionally published, I've encountered a few people who they had books published with one publisher or agent or both, and then switched to a different one, sometimes within the same series. If you've got multiple publishers and agents and stuff like that, and you're listing those, one of them gentlemen, they actually had it divided out into, these books were published by this imprint, these ones were published by this imprint, to just kind of give not just your most current, but the ones that you've worked with in the past. Okay. So I think that's about the only thing that I would be adding.
Yeah, and that's something I'd not come across, so it's a very, very good point. Author Brian Liu says, if you publish under a pen name, do you need to provide your real name to publishers or to put in press kits? The only time I've seen I had to provide my real name was on a manuscript so that they know who to pay. But I've don't think you need to. Otherwise, if they need it, they can ask. So... Okay, so back to author pages. I'm sorry I got out of order, but sorry. This is the nature of a live presentation. So for author pages, obviously you want to have your name on there. You want to have a very short biography. If you want, you can have a longer one later, but I would provide the shortest one first. This is my personal preference. So like 100 to 200 words, okay? Contact information. How do they get a hold of you? Especially if they want an interview. I would not provide phone numbers, but I would provide an email, okay? Photos, at least one if it's safe for you to provide a photo. If you can do, I've seen a trend of doing one portrait, one landscape, and one perfectly square so that people can put them in different social media or on magazines and things. Then your latest books. I would not give the whole catalog on your author page, okay? And then any accolades, but keep the list short. So this could be like what groups you're in, if you're in like Ally or science fiction group or writers groups. If you've done any successful Kickstarters, those are really, really good things. So, yeah. Oh, and there was one more I forgot to share. I'm going to share Hugh Howey's book. I've read his Wool and the prequel series. I can't think of what it's called, but anyway, I really like his. He gives a reason why he started writing. Real quick look at the books, but there's not a description of them. So I think the big list is okay. And then talks about something he finds important to him, and then how to sign up for his newsletter, which I forgot to put on my list. Having a link to your newsletter is a really good thing. So, okay, I want to make sure we aren't missing any questions.
Something that occurred to me with the questions that were scrolling along there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how much of a thing it is nowadays, but I know it used to be that if you were traditionally published, you could just go under your pen name on everything, because if you were getting fan mail or anything like that, it was going through your agent or your publisher, and they were forwarding it to you. They were the only ones that actually knew your name to protect you from fans.
Yes. And I think that's important nowadays.
And the other thing that I would want to add in is, when you are putting together your press kit and you're saying who your agent is, who your publishers are, take a couple of moments to double check and make sure you are spelling their names correctly.
Yes. Spelling and grammar. Yes.
Don't just go from memory. Actually go and look at where their name is wrote by them and make sure that you've got their name correct.
Yeah, the old adage of a stitch in time saves 9. So, I had one more thought. What was it? My brain just went. It was regarding your pen name. One of the reasons why how a lot of writers can use their pen name for a lot of things, except for like the tax purposes and stuff, is you sign up for a doing business as. And in my state, it's like $10 for several years. So it's so legally you get to call yourself, I get to call myself Amy Winters Wasp because I do use a pen name. I just have had a couple of issues where somebody kind of stalked me, and I don't want to repeat that. It wasn't like physical stalking, but it was online, and it was icky, and I don't want anybody to have to go through that.
And swatting is a thing, and
yes.
And for anybody that doesn't know what that means, it means somebody with too much time on their hands and not enough to do calls the police on your residence when they find out your address.
Yeah.
And the police have to respond.
Yeah.
They can't just ignore the call.
Yeah.
Estelle back up there said that for the picture stuff, they have some art of themselves and their VTuber model.
Yeah. And that is something, it's definitely, if you feel it's not safe to put your face there, then yeah. We had Outrageous Olive was saying, I was told in a marketing consult that the need for newsletters is dependent on the age you sell to. And that is very, very true. Depending on the group, people won't even open their inbox. Yeah, my daughter, teenage, and my son, both of them, I have to please check your email. Please check your email, because my daughter's looking for a job right now, and she hates checking her email. It's so it is. And it also depends on the genre and how, who the author is. So you definitely take those things into consideration. But if you have a newsletter, put it out there. And if you don't.
And it can also depend on what your newsletter is, depending upon the type of stuff that is in a newsletter. If I know that a newsletter has recipes from the author's book series in it, I'm more likely to open it.
Yeah. those catches, those hooks, yes. But anyway, so let's talk about author pages. And my first one was Gail Carriger's that I was going to share. I love that she has her book first because that's the thing she's selling. This is the important thing to her. And so she changes this out as she writes new books. And she has, all of the things that we talked about, and a really quick synopsis. And then one praise review, but it's a very good one. And then a really short bio. But it is an awesome, awesome book page. And it's just the one focus, her newest thing. And you can go and look under books to find all of her other books. So this is the one that she's focusing on right now. So I was going to pull up Philip Quaintrell's so you can talk about. I just pulled up the first book that he had. If you want to kind of chat about that.
Oh, The Rise of the Ranger. I'm actually reading that one right now. I got it on an audiobook.
Oh, okay.
That
cool.
one is one that I saw the cover of, not this one, but the one just before it. I read this one because of the one before it, I think. Which one am I reading right now? 1 second.
I don't know. I can't tell you.
They're both so good. I mean, if you like thieves and assassins and things like that, check out his books. They're so good. But anyway, yeah, I'm reading Rise of the Ranger right now. So it was the other one just before it that I saw it, the cover, and I bought the book without even really paying attention to what it said, other than, a couple of things.
Covers sell.
Yeah, the cover is what sold me on his books, quite literally. But
okay.
Don't see it over here.
So
sorry, I'm trying to.
You want me to? I'll pop the. You on Discord or in? I guess I could try to open up chat.
I can just open up this thing over here and copy it out of here. Sorry, I should be much more prepared for this.
We're fine. You gave me links. We're prepared. So.
Okay. Yeah, the Rise of the Ranger thing. What was I talking about it?
Just your thoughts on this page, because I just pulled up one from his site and I thought it was clean. So
yeah, I think he basically has a description of what the book is about here. I think if I was setting this up, I might have also included underneath where it's available on Kindle and Audible. I might have also included underneath that just like some quote from somebody that had reviewed the book.
Yeah.
And I saw that on another author's page where they had like a revolving panel of what people had said about the book.
Okay.
So that's something that I might have added myself there. But like you said, it's just a nice clean thing, and you can see
it's beautiful.
The next book in the series.
Yeah, which I loved. I loved the the leader magnet right there. So
when I read the Shannara series, I read the second book first, and that was how I found out that books came in trilogies. So I really appreciate it.
I think we've all started in the middle of a series at some point.
Yeah.
So
I love it when they make it easy to see if I'm starting in the middle of the series.
Yes. We have a quick question from Phaedra Rose. If you want to use a pen name but don't have anything big ready to publish for a few years, is there a way to kind of lock it down? I would definitely establish your website. Get, if you're doing Phaedra Rose, get phaedrarose.com so nobody else can. And kind of check and see what's there now. Start establishing yourself with a Twitter, or whatever social media you want to use. And like I said, lock down I have amywintersgoss.com, and I have my book series, liminalchronicles.com. And I had those before they were published. So I would recommend start establishing yourself as a writer so that you have a little bit of cred before you go live with a book.
And
Sandra?
I will say from personal experience here, when you do get the website to establish your book, try to prioritize not losing it. Because years ago, when I started writing my book, I went and got the website that was the name of the capital city in my novel. Well, come a few years later, a disaster with losing my home and everything like that, I lost that website. And before I could pick it back up, and it was only like a month that it was in the open, someone took my website back around 2012, and to this day that thing is just sitting there up for bid. Nobody is touching it. It's not doing anything. It is just sitting there with advertisements on it, waiting for me to get desperate enough to buy it back. Instead of buying it back, I changed the name of the capital city in my book.
Good for you.
So,
because they were probably going to scalp you for it.
Oh yeah, they want like $2,000 for that website.
Oh my gosh!
And it's only $8 a year.
Yeah. Yeah. Jerks.
Make sure if you get your author website and stuff like that, try to make sure you set aside enough each year to at least keep the website under your control.
A lot of times you can reserve it for a couple of years too if you have the cash for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, we had another question here. Talent Artho says, have you looked at how these sites are using responsive design, good viewing experience on a regular screen or tablet or mobile? I have not at this point, although I try to be on like World Anvil, which is made mostly, it's not perfect, but mostly if I do the CSS right, to be able to go mobile. But yeah, that is definitely something, because the younger generations or several of my friends who don't get access to their computer until late at night, they're on mobile. So it's definitely something to think about. So, okay. We have gabbed and gabbed and gabbed, and we are about at the halfway point. If you guys don't mind, we're going to take a really short break. I'm going to pause the subtitles so that you guys don't have to see our gabbing behind the scenes. And will we be back in just a couple minutes?
I would, before we go, like to say to Brian Liu there, don't let us scare you away from self-publishing.
Oh, no. I chose self-publishing. There's a lot to learn. But I chose it because I felt it was best for me. And I don't like the directions a lot of the publishing industry is going to, burning out people and stuff. So it just depends on what you feel is best for you. Don't be afraid. There's just a learning curve. So, okay. Anyway, break. We'll see you guys in, is 5 minutes enough for us?
We got a lot to cover, I think.
Yeah, I know. So let's do 5 minutes, and I'll see you guys in a little bit. Panel guests, hello again.
Welcome
Hopefully
back.
you guys can hear us again. We are back. Sorry, my timer started over. I put in the 10-minute timer last minute, so it was just kind of, yeah. So, and I am going to hide the subtitles because that's driving me crazy. The flashing in front of me is really hard for me to pay attention. So anyway, hi, we're back. And Wolf, I have my ears on just for a couple minutes. You asked for them. There they are. But this is a more professional panel, so they aren't staying on very long. So hello, Bitzer. Welcome. So getting back into pages, maybe kind of what we want to do, what we don't want to do. how to get your press kit page out there and stuff. Let's talk about that. Sandra, did you want to kind of talk about what you would recommend not to do or to do?
In terms of getting your press kit out there?
We can start with that, sure. Let's do that.
Going back to the old days, if you ever have to mail your press kit to somebody, do not put glitter in it.
Yeah.
Do not put glitter in it, and do not write it in red crayon on pink construction paper.
Oh my god.
I have seen both of those. Yeah, my sister had a magazine. I've seen things. I would say think through who your target audience is. If you're writing a children's book, you might not be marketing it to dudes that read car magazines. So you can probably save yourself a little bit, unless they've got children interested in books on cars that you're writing. Try to target a bit more to who you're trying to attract to your information.
Definitely keeping in your mind not just your website target audience, but who you're going to be writing for. So, and this is actually hurting my head right now. It usually doesn't, so I'm going to take it off. But I did humor you, Wolf. Put on my fox ears. Those are usually for Game of Thrones. So, but Outrage This Olive had a crazy comment. When I got my college acceptance letter, they did that glitter nonsense. I didn't graduate from there. Yeah, no. Oh, we have a stretch check. Should we do that really quick? So, thank you, Games. I appreciate that. Because I am stiff and I'm not sitting up.
That. Oh, good.
My back sounds like popcorn. Okay. What I would suggest, and I'm not going to name names. We're only going to show examples of good. Okay. But one of my favorite authors has a website that is so full of everything on one page. I can't find stuff. I can't find out if my favorite series has new books in it. I can barely find anything on it. It's just like, ugh. It's just overwhelming. So my biggest thing is keep it as simple and as clean as possible. When my first press kit page, because I warned y'all that my first one stunk, it did. And I'm not saying it's absolutely perfect now. There's things I want to fix, but it's better. I had everything under the sun because it was what my book tour person had requested. And it was like scrolling. And it's just like, no. Keep it simple. Keep it short. Put links if you need to for more information, or a spoiler button, especially on World Anvil, that's like really easy to do. So put a spoiler button for if people need more. Okay. That's kind of
my first effort was like, on the internet, it's real easy to not realize that you have 10 pages worth of text.
Yes. I had multiple columns of just about 10 pages of text. So I was like, no, don't do that. Don't do it. So we talked about the physical copies. I'm going to talk about using a collection of images. If Sandra, if you want to talk next about how to get information out there about your experiences with that, I'll prep you to think about that while I chat about. So if you have a set of images that you're prepping for a book release, and you want to have like promo images and stuff, you can like make a Google Drive, Dropbox, or like put a set of files in a zip file on your website if you have like WordPress or something, and put them all together. Make it easy. Don't overwhelm people, but have your author picture, a book cover or two, a couple different formats and Square is usually very safe for social media, for Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the major ones. make sure that it will work, and don't use PNG for everything. Okay. Instagram, especially for if you're using a thing to post it to, it doesn't always work. I would use JPEG if at all possible, and just kind of have everything all together in one folder or one zip file. People can download. It's really easy to find. If you're looking to make social media images, Canva is awesome for that. They've got great templates. You can use a lot of it for free. So that's my spiel on kind of a social media kit that people can share for a book release and stuff. So Sandra, this side, backwards.
Yeah, something that on the preparing it for social media, getting it out there in terms of social media. Something that I found out more recently, actually, so it probably hurt me quite a bit earlier on, is don't just go tagging a whole bunch of things. Like, you know, I am a part of the Twitter writing community. And there are things that I will tag hashtag Twitter or hashtag writing community. But if you have half of your tweet is hashtag this, hashtag that to make sure that it's going to these groups, those groups are going to be ignoring it most of the time. And the ones that don't ignore it are just going to be paying attention for, okay, my bot is going to send this out, and the bot is sending it out to people that have that bot blocked. So it's not helping you to put it out there with a bunch of links on it. Instead, look for targeting. I found out on accident that if you mention something in the tweet, it's going to end up in those hashtags anyway when somebody goes searching for that hashtag.
Yeah.
So if you just talk about, I wrote a book on horses, if somebody looks up hashtag horse, your tweet's going to show up.
Yeah.
So save yourself the insanity of all those hashtags and just write a clean social media posting to get your information out there. I'm sorry, my cat is tangled up in my cord.
Sorry. Well, while you're untangling, I will add to that on Twitter's hashtag info and their help, they recommend only one, maybe two hashtags. A lot of the I'm part of a group that does VSS is very short stories, so we write to Twitter links, story snippets, and a lot of people have like 15 hashtags because they're trying to use a whole bunch of these, and I'm like, no, don't. So the group I run, I encourage them to at my user so that they can save a hashtag. But anyway, my spiel on hashtags and what Twitter says it prefers. So
yeah, the other thing that I would say for press kits, getting the information out there, you're making a press kit. Press releases. There are press release sites that will allow you to, as an individual, upload press releases that book reviewers, newspapers, whoever can look through the press releases and find ones that are applicable to them.
I did not know that.
My information on this is outdated, so I cannot give you examples right now. But back 15 years ago, I had a list of like 10 different press release companies that, as a single person doing my own press stuff, I could send press releases to them. I would go to those sites. I ran 28 blogs back in the day, and I would go to those press release sites and look through things to find things that went well with the subjects of my blogs to help me find stuff to write about. So they are out there. but you might have to dig them up. But I can tell you, there are press release places out there that you can use as an option for getting the word out about your newly launched book or whatever.
Okay, we had a oops, and I can't type to save my life today. Oh my goodness, there we go. Bitzer K just published their, I can't remember, sorry. Today's Tale, our links, welcome. I will allow you to share them, but I can't go to them today because we are focusing on the topic of conduits things. So I'll let you share them in the chat if they fit my links request or link allowances. Okay. Okay.
Catch that confession from author Brian Liu.
How many of us love social media? Not many. You are not alone. But it's one of those things where you can filter out your feeds and things and only follow people you like. Tomorrow I'll be on, Sandra and I will be on a panel about social media, and we'll get into a lot more about that. And Melody will be with us, and it'll be a lot of fun. So
Melody will save us.
She does statistics.
She knows things.
One thing I did want to kind of talk about on pages before we get away from this, and I need to pop back over so you guys can see my screen, is the use of a title bar. Again, keep it clean, keep it really simple, but about, you know what that is. That's about the author. Books is going to be how to find their books. Keep it, having a nice, clean title bar with that buy now, that's awesome. And then on his page here too, he also has, it's colored. It's the only thing that's really brightly colored on his page. Buy now. It's very, very well done. So
yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure we aren't missing more questions. I think we got them all.
And the title of the book up above the description of the book there stands out really good. Just it fits the font that he uses on his book, and they're both really easy to read, and it just helps it to stand out there. Okay, this is about this.
Okay. We have about 15 more minutes. What I'm going to do right now is show you guys the templates that I'm going to share. Okay. Now, disclaimer before I share these templates. These are on Notion. Number one, Notion is good for prototyping and getting your information on a page. It's not good as this is my author page, okay? But it's a nice way to prototype. You can move stuff around, and it's just really nice that way. Two, these are my templates. I will be selling them at some point. I'm offering them to you for free during Conduit, maybe a couple days afterwards. After that, I will be changing the link. So if you want to get a copy, please don't share and get it while they're hot. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop both of those into the chat. And you're very, very welcome to go get a copy of those, and I'll show you what these look like. So my author press kit one isn't quite as clean and done because I haven't quite finished it. But basically it's you can change anything on it. Just go ahead and duplicate it and make a copy of it and fill in and stuff. So you have a basis for what you want to put on your page, and you can move stuff around all you like. So you just have to kind of fill in, what's your bio, and I give you a couple example questions to think through, and a review or a quote, or make sure your cover's there, your author picture if you could have one. Just a couple of social media links. If you're like me and everywhere, you don't need 15 of them. So, and some of these, like if you change this out, you'll have to, I've embedded pages into there so that we can get multiple columns, just so you're aware of that. And then just kind of some ideas of what you might want on there. And then I do have template credits on there. If you'd be so kind, if you use it, keep me as a credit on there. I won't. Obviously, I probably won't know because I can't know where all it's going. But I would be grateful. And then if you have any images that aren't yours, make sure to credit them. Okay, and make sure you have permission to use them. Then also the book one, and this one I have more polished because this one was the one that I did first, and so it's again, they just kind of, you have your cover front and center. This is what I'm selling. Then, your title, a tagline or hook, or your elevator pitch, a little bit about you, and then the really fast details of, hey, where are you selling this? What is the ISBN? How do I find it? How many pages does it have? Because, are you going to give a first grader a 300-page book? If probably not, but and then let people know what the genres are and things like this. It really does help. Then farther down, give them the full synopsis on the back of your book. And then a couple, I had like 4 or 5 on my page originally, 2, maybe 3 if they're really good, but keep it really minimal. And then if you have files to share with people, your press kit PDF, something they can print off, or a link to sample chapters, like in my book Rise, I have the first 3 chapters available on BookFunnel or one of the other sites, and then I had the first 4 chapters on World Anvil because I wanted World Anvil to get a little bit more attention for that. And then a zip of promotional files, a YouTube trailer, these kind of things. And then like for online book tours, here's things that they're gonna want. What themes are in your book? Is it found family? Is it, what is your target audience? Mine was, I figured women in about mid-20s to mid-30s, and interests they had, and then some quotes from the book so that people can kind of get a flavor for it and use those in their posts if you're doing an online book tour like I did, and then a little bit about you. So feel free to duplicate that, modify it, use it. But if you use it, again, I'd love credit. Please don't share beyond CONduit. This is my gift to CONduit, and I'm not putting it on the treasure trove thing because shortly after CONduit, I will be changing the links because I do plan on selling the templates. I will also hopefully have a World Anvil template for these, but I'm not quite ready. So that is basically what I'm sharing, and you guys can, again, translate that over to whatever WordPress or whatever site that you have for your main site. But again, don't use these as your main site. Google doesn't handle it as well. You won't get as much traffic from it, but it's great to prototype. So, do we want to talk about Linktree and URL shorteners really fast?
If we do, you would mostly be the one doing the talking, so it's up to you.
Oh, okay. Was there anything else you wanted to cover before I hit that then? Because you had said something and then it just all went because of, stream brain. So.
I don't think so. I think we've pretty much covered most of what I could think on for.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we've covered most of it, other than shortened URLs and stuff.
Okay. I did have one other really quick thing too, and feel free to add in on this. I almost forgot. I was going to show you guys my current page and then some things I want to do to it because I'm learning. This is a whole learning process, and you keep tweaking things, and then you add new things as things come up. So here is my current author page. I have it linked off of my Amy Winters Boss, which this is a World Anvil thing. So I did Amy Winters Boss forwards to my World Anvil page for this. Couple of things that I know, and thank you for the follow, Jem's right. Just some rights. Sandra had mentioned to me early that you want to have a professional photo. Mine is not professional. I need to update that. So it's okay. It's a better picture of me, but I need an updated
Look at some
one.
of my favorite authors. I mean, like I said, the one fellow, it looks like you're sitting across the table in a cafe having a cup of coffee or lunch with them.
Yeah, but this is, I don't know. I like the goofy smile because that is just me, but I need something a little more professional. I probably need to shorten this up. Okay, go ahead. You were
My
going to say
Twitter
something.
picture is a picture of me standing in front of a polar bear at Alaska International Airport that my mom took.
That's Twitter, though.
There's times and places not to have it professional pictures.
Yeah. One other thing I'm going to be working on over here is I have a slew of links. It's just overwhelming the number I have there. And it's like, I wanted to include everything. And it's all like square and clean, but it's not readable easily because I'm like, okay, where's my Twitter? Oh, there it is. And it took me a couple minutes, a couple seconds to find it. That's not, you want things to be found really fast. I would need to organize. Oh, and I needed a better book blurb on my book page. Here's my press kit. I'm going to be redoing my cover because it didn't quite fit my genre. You want to be careful with your genre, so I'm having to pay to have my cover redone. I'm not happy about that. I loved this cover, but it doesn't quite fit the genre. I'm also going to be rewriting my synopsis. So if I'm having the cover redone, might as well rewrite the synopsis because I didn't know how to write one when I first released. And so I'll be rewriting that. I'm working with a coach on that. So just so you guys know that nobody gets stuff perfect the first time, just keep tweaking it. So we have about 5 more minutes. Oh, you know what? We did not take while I'm kind of covering Linktree really, really fast. Do you guys have any more questions before? Because I don't want us to go too long into when we should go raid. We should be raiding in about 5-10 minutes. Pop any more questions in that you guys have. We've tried to answer them as we went, but if you have any more questions, it's time to get them in, okay?
Or if we missed one and didn't get it answered, put it back in there.
Yeah, put it back in because it's okay. So Linktree, I'm going to show you guys an example of one I absolutely love. It's not an author. He is one of my favorite font artists, but Retro Atelier. He does a lot of stuff. He doesn't have really like a main website, so this is his setup. I like the fact that everything is here. YouTube, Behance, everything that he has, it is one central site. But there's some negatives to this. It's not branded as him. It's Linktree and then him. So he doesn't have as much control. What if something happens to Linktree? So it's something to consider. You can make similar pages, and I will be doing similar. Some of the URL shorteners, I have a lifetime subscription to bl.ink or bli.ink. I can't remember exactly what, but it's blank. Okay. They will be having a page option there, but you could easily do something like this on World Anvil. Use a URL shortener, go amywintersvoss.com links, and there you go. It's all in one page. It's something that you control, and it's branded by you. So that is my super fast Linktree kind of thing. There's a ton of different ones. If you look up, there's IOFM, Card. There's just a ton of them. But the ones that people know are probably going to be your best bet. Like Linktree is the most famous one that I know of. So, but anyway, I hope that that's helpful and showed you the kind of the pros and the cons of these. But if you're all over the place, like Retro Atelier is, and I love his fonts. It's nice to have a common place to have everything. So, are there any more questions? Or did you have any additional? Sorry, I can't see my OBS screen.
You on this side of me?
There we go. Yeah, it's backwards. Sandra, did you have anything to add in general, or thoughts, or Linktree stuff, or anything?
Nothing that I can think of. I will say, if anybody does think of anything, come slap me with it at any time. I will do my best to help answer questions, even beyond Conduit. But I can't think of anything else right now that I would be able to add to the discussion.
Okay, I'm going to pop our links in there. One more time, you guys should be able to find us. And we're also on Discord. I'm Shyward Fox, or Amy WV Shyward Fox on Discord. What is your Discord?
My Discord is Shades number 1690.
Okay. So you're welcome to chat with us. I do currently allow personal DMs, but if they get spammy, I will turn them off, just so you guys know. I've had a fair number of spam. So currently I do allow DMs.
I'm the same.
Okay. If you guys want some more references, some of the references I used today were right here. I'll pop those into chat. Some of the things, but I didn't include everything, because if you include everything that everybody says, it's going to be way too much on your page. So you kind of have to pick and see what works best for you in your book. And yeah, I think that is all we have. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I hope you have an awesome rest of your evening. Go enjoy the rest of Conduit. I hope that this was very useful for you guys. So I'm going to pop this over to our outro. I think they can still hear us. Yeah, they can still hear us. But thank you guys for joining us today. And I'm going to pop on the schedule. As soon as it pops onto the schedule, you won't get to hear us anymore, but see y'all, we will go raid. So I need to, my raid shout is that, and we need to raid Writers CONduit. All right. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.